Okay, hello everyone and welcome to our final deep dive Wednesday of the academic year. This, believe it or not, is our 8th one and it's been a fantastic journey so far. And we're so grateful to everyone who's joined us along the way. If you've missed any of the sessions, you can always catch up with all the sessions on our YouTube channel. We've got a playlist dedicated to these deep dives. We also create blogs around these deep dives, and we normally do that about a week after we deliver this deep dive. So in about a week's time, you'll see the YouTube video uploaded onto our playlist, and you'll see a blog on our website. This is our 8th deep dive, and we're going to be back on Wednesday, the 2nd of September. So today's session is called Beyond the Classroom, and we're taking a slightly different focus. Instead of looking at your, traditional planning and classroom delivery, we're going to be diving into generators within TeacherMatic that support leadership, administration, HR and quality teams, the people behind the scenes that keep everything running. So this, rightly so, by the way, TeacherMatic is considered an AI platform for teachers, from the name. But what you have to also appreciate is that there are a number of growing generators that are actually suitable for non-teaching staff, such as leadership, HR, quality, and even marketing. So just to let you know how this session works, for the first 30 minutes, we're going to do a deep dive in today's topic, all about, beyond the classroom. And during this part of the session, all cameras and microphones will be muted to minimize distractions and to ensure a smooth experience. At the end of the 30 minutes, we're going to release your mics and your cameras, and then that way you'll get your chance to share your thoughts, ask questions, and discuss how these tools could support your own practice. All right, so let's get started. So TeacherMatic, is, associated with classroom focused tasks like lesson plans, quizzes, and feedback. But it's really important to recognize that teaching is only one part of the workload for, us educators. So you have to, especially in the last couple of weeks, we've been focusing on developing TeacherMatic so it better supports roles such as leadership, management, HR, quality processes. So we've developed a number of generators in the last few weeks that are really going to be suitable for those types of roles. Okay, just to let you know. So this, I probably wasn't supposed to share it with you. It was shared with me by Richard, but I did want to share it with you. And this is, the role counts. So in terms of teaching, there's 82 generators, non-teaching generators, 71. And we now have 58 generators in relation to leadership, right? For HR, we have 24, marketing 18, admin 16, and for assessors, we have 5. So, and we're always building more, and we're very, very receptive to feedback. So many of our generators have been developed as a result of feedback that we've gotten from yourselves. You come to us and you tell us, what, TeacherMatic, it would be great if we could do this. And if that need is common across the sector, we go and develop it. So I want to share with you a very useful link. It's a very easy URL to remember. It's called teachermatic.com/links, right? And if I click on that, I'll show you what that looks like. It's really, useful URL to share with your colleagues. It's a curation of tools and links, and in there you can access our YouTube playlists, right? And you can sign up for our community webinar, which we're having on Friday the 13th. I highly recommend you sign up to that one. You can sign up to our future deep dives. Make sure you join the newsletter, and this is a link to our blog. So it's a very useful URL, but in particular, I want to focus on this link here, which says TeacherMatic roles and tools. And if you click on that there, it will list all the different roles here. And if I click on the role, like leadership team, we got all the generators related to that particular role. And if you're logged on to TeacherMatic, which I believe I am, and I click on that role, it will actually launch the generator itself. I'm not logged in, or it would have launched the generator. So that's a really useful link, just to showcase all the different generators we have for our roles. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at these following generators that you'll see here. I won't be demoing it. I'm going to be handing over to Richard Godard, who's our genius behind many of these generators, and he's our generative AI architect. So with that being said, let me hand over to Richard, who's going to be demoing, I hope, all of these generators. And if we run out of time, then you'll have the opportunity to explore them in your own time. So thank you, Richard. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Isam. I hope everybody can hear me, and I hope I'm sharing the TeacherMatic screen. Can you confirm that for me, Isam?
Yes, that's there. Yes.
Excellent. Right, I'm going to do a couple of corrections to Isam, very rudely, to start off with. He said we've been developing things over the last few weeks. In fact, many of the tools for leadership and quality have been developed for several months now. I'll be concentrating on some of the newer ones, but there are things like the policy and strategy designers, some of the quality tools, IQA, pre-course quality tools have been around for 2 or 3, 4 months. So we have been concentrating on these areas, but certainly we are building now, at the request of many of you, new tools which will help in the management, in the leadership, in looking at things that take a lot of time. I was talking to somebody at one of our university users the other day who was saying that just reorganizing courses had taken them 6 weeks. Well, we have a tool that could have helped with that. They didn't know about it at the time. So I'm going to look at a few of the tools that we've been working on fairly recently. Myself and my colleague Sam have been developing these. And the one I want to start with is the insight generator, which is a very, very simple generator. And it's called Insight because that's what we hope it will give you. It will allow you to look at a document, a spreadsheet, a number of spreadsheets, combined spreadsheets, reports, and to have a look and see what they actually can tell you. So I'm going to pull in an example. I might be able to load this on screen so you can see it. By the way, when we say upload documents, almost always the documents can be a Word document, a PDF, a spreadsheet, an XLS or a CSV file, or sometimes an image. And in fact, if I can share this, perhaps again my colleagues can tell me whether the share is working. You should be able to see an image of a spreadsheet done as a scan. Is that correct, guys?
Confirmed, Richard. Yes.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to upload this. This is part of the JPEG that I'm going to upload into this insight generator. And as you can see, it gives us a little thumbnail to show us what we've uploaded there. But I could have uploaded document, spreadsheets, text files. I can even upload the transcripts from a Google Meet or as we are here, our Microsoft Teams meeting, and we can analyze those. So this generator gives you insight into almost any form of data. So I'm just going to go straight into the generate option. It will take a few moments. We will have some dead moments during this demonstration because obviously we're asking a lot of the AI, so it does take a little while to do. So if at any time you've got some thoughts, please put them into the chat and we'll deal with them later on. But here we go. So this is looked at this document. We haven't told it any more about the document. We've just uploaded it, and it says it appears to be a spreadsheet containing student demographic and academic information. It gives a list of the heads in there, and it says, why don't you ask some questions about this data? I can answer lots of things. Well, let's look at some of the questions. It says, for example, here's a suggested question. Which major has the is there a correlation between SAT scores and newspaper readership frequency? Not a question I ever thought of asking, but we can take that one and we can literally put it into the box at the bottom and see what the answer is. But we don't have to use questions that are suggested. We could use any question that we like. So we could, for example, say, here's the answer. There's a measurable relationship between SAT scores and newspaper readership. It's given us 3 answers based on the data within the document that we uploaded. It's also given us 2 answers which have got the 3 stars in front of it, and it says any items marked with 3 stars are not derived or deduced from the original file, but are AI suggestions. So not only can we look at what the AI finds in that particular document, but we can also look at other matters that might be related to it that the AI will suggest to us. So that insight generator, we have a request recently for an achievement, variation in achievement levels over a number of years generator. Well, in fact, we used 3 spreadsheets over 3 years, and we plugged that into the insight generator, and it gave us the answer we wanted simply by analyzing it and then allowing us to ask the relevant questions. So the insight generator is one to play with. You can do so much with it. It's not particularly, it doesn't particularly force you to do things. It says, look, give us some information and I will analyze it for you, and then you can ask me questions about that data. So it's a very useful all-round tool. We're going to move on to a more detailed tool. One of the things that, well, when I was teaching and working in further education, one of those horrible moments was when somebody wanted us to create a self-assessment report. And I'm sure many of you have had to do this. So I'm going to look at the self-assessment advisor. This does not claim to be a full self-assessment report, or in school terms, perhaps an SEF, a self-evaluation form report. What it does is advises you about content for an SAR or other similar document. So I'm going to go for, let's go for further education, because that's where I worked. We're going to go for England because Ofsted, or in Wales, Estyn, may have an influence on the result as well and what they require. Obviously, self-assessment reports don't have to be just for inspection. They will be produced on a regular basis for other purposes as well. I need a document to start with. So what I'm going to do is I've got a document here, which is it's a 2-sheet Excel file. Again, I'll open it and see if we can see it. I should, with a bit of luck, be able to share that with you. So it's 2 sheets. First sheet has got information about the sector subject area, the SSAs. So lots of information about retention, achievement, pass rates, and comparisons with GFE. So that's our source data. And there's another sheet in here which is about ethnicity, and that's also related. So we're going to simply use that document as to feed into our self-assessment advisor. So it's uploaded the document. We'll ask for a set of action points, and let's just go and see where we get to. So the data is being analyzed in the same way as the insight analyzer worked, but in this case, we're asking for a specific output, which is to advise us on content for our self-assessment report or other similar report. And here we go. So it's noted that there are sector subject area learner performance data in here, and there's an introduction and overall summary of it, and analysis by strengths and areas for improvement. It's also looked at the demographics by ethnic basis, and looked at how different ethnic groups learn or don't learn so well. It's also interestingly looked at age groups as well, and to see where our strengths are. And it suggested some action points that we might like to take. And as a general conclusion about the institution performing well over the subject areas, notable strengths, and so on. So that's a sort of document that you might find is very, very useful for feeding into your final self-assessment report. You might also want to take that document, export it as a Word document, which I've now done. I'm going to close this document and take it into the next item that I want to show you, which is the improvement planner. In the improvement planner, we can take a self-assessment report, an external inspection report, your ESTIN or Ofsted or whichever report you want to, or in some cases an awarding body external quality report. But I'm going to take the self-assessment report that we just created. I'm going to upload this one. It's called Further Education .doc. So I've taken a self-assessment report. The analysis has been done. I know what our basic situation is, but I want more details on what the best way to handle the situation is. So taking that document and seeing where we need to go from that to improve, to build into our improvement plan, sometimes called a QIP, Quality Improvement Plan. This will help me do so. So as it says at the bottom, not much longer, always the embarrassing bit when it is much longer, but there's a lot of work again for the AI to do. So here we go. So we've got an analysis, first of all. We've got quality of education in the various sector areas, showing what the original report showed us, and then the plan for how to deal with it. So in this case, quality of action in social sciences significantly lower than the general FE average. So here's our plan, what to do. Introduce targeted interventions, revise curriculum content, provide professional development for staff. So each SSA has been looked at, and then we have a comment on our overall effectiveness and how reports like this will help and have helped other institutions, and how and we always like to have a positive point, don't we? The old bathtub effect, go in high, come out high. How these achievable plans will lead staff and learners being proud of where they work and learn, it said in this case. And then it's given us a list of prioritized action points. So again, a tool for leadership and for quality officers, which we hope will lead to not so much hard work in analyzing, but these are good starting points for your self-assessment review and for your quality improvement plans or their equivalents. So that you've got a starting point, which doesn't mean you've got to go right back to the beginning and work out the analysis. You've got something you can work from. So that's one that I wanted to show you, and I'm going to jump, in fact, from the list. I'm going to jump to another one which is very closely related to what you've just seen, which is called the State of the Nation speech. I'm sure those of you in leadership and management have had to do speeches in the past to various groups about where the organization is, where you're going. So let's give it a title. Let's call it Where We Are Now, Where We Are Going. So we have a title for the speech. Who are we going to deliver it to? Let's deliver it to the teaching staff in this case. And our source material could be lots of things, but I'm going to actually use an inspection report. I'm going to look at an inspection report, which here we are. We have an ESTIN inspection report, which is one that the result of this is a real report, by the way, but I've taken out all personal and any identifiable details. But this is an inspection report where a particular organization did need to make some improvements. And I want to tell my speech audience about it. And I want to create some slides as well. So I'm going to ask it to include the details from the presentation slides at the end. So not only have I got a brief speech, but I've got some slides to go with it, which will help me obviously in the delivery. So let's have a look at what that comes up with. There are choices. You can have a summary speech, which just basically gives you the headings, which you can then fill in yourself, an informative speech, which gives you more detail, and a very detailed speech, which will almost be readable verbatim with your own changes built into it. But here we go. So this is a speech to the teaching staff at Llanryddydd, I can't say it, High School. So here's a basis. Good afternoon, everyone. Where we are now, currently critical junction. The ESTA report has highlighted several areas that need urgent attention. Standards, teaching and learning, leaders and management. Where we are going, our clear vision. Where are we going? How are we going to raise standards? And what are our actions? What are we going to do about it? And then there's a conclusion to the speech. Obviously, this will need filling out by yourselves. And then here's our presentation slides for each of those sections so that we've got a useful background. These slides, of course, could be used in one of our PowerPoint generators. There's one called the PowerPoint generator, another one called prepare a presentation. So you can go straight in with these slides, or indeed, if you're clever enough, you can put these slides into Word and convert them straight into a PowerPoint presentation themselves. So that's 3 generators, all related to analyzing data and then talking about the data and helping you, I hope, to have less analysis and more input into the actual content of the SAR or the improvement plan or the speech. I'm going to move on to a couple of rather different generators. Change management. This came out of a conversation we had with a couple of users who were looking at the documentation, the books, the background information, websites about change management. And they didn't, in one case, they didn't want to bring in outsiders. They wanted to look at how change could be managed within their organization. And what we did was to take some of the standard change management models and allow those people, and we've now widened this out so anybody can use it, to look at what they want to change and look at different ways that these changes might be managed. So, for example, let's say we want to improve the engagement of employees in a secondary school. Well, we can either not use a specific model and just let the AI come up with answers itself, but we've also got the most common standard change models. I'll use the Cotter 8-step because that was the one that in fact was come up, which was used by one of our initial testing sites. So we can ask for an intermediate complexity Cotter 8-step model on changing the engagement of employees, and we'll ask the AI to come up with a model based on, with a result based on that model. There are other models available, and one of the options you have is actually to use an unlisted change model and then give it a name, and then the AI will find that model for you and utilize that basic. So in the Cotter 8-step model, there are these 8 steps. I'm sure that some of you know this: sense of urgency, building a coalition, strategic vision, volunteer army, and so on. And so for each of those steps, it's suggested particular items. So conducting a staff engagement survey, town hall meetings involve students, building a guiding coalition, getting together the right people, and so on. So there you go. That's the change management model. I haven't got too much time left, so I'm not going to go into any more detail, but please, on all of these, all of you who are users of TeacherMatic have got access to all of these. None of them are restricted. Please, please, please just give them a try. We've all, I'm afraid, had to deal with complaints and concerns at some time or other. It's not always easy, and it needs the personal touch. So one of the important things about the next 3 generators, the last 3 I'm going to share with you today, is that they all give you a starting point. They are not complete answers, neither should they be. I'm sure you all agree that you need to get involved in any of these on a personal basis, but They are starting points. So let's look at a complaint we've had. Who is the complaint from? How was it received? It's in an email, and it's from a parent in this case. So I've got a complaint which I'm going to copy and paste, but I'll read it to you. It says, my daughter was given a lunchtime detention for failing to submit French homework in time, even though she had been off school due to sickness when it was set. This is completely unfair and has upset her a great deal. How can the teacher be allowed to do this? There we go. Let's paste that in. So there's the verbatim version of the complaint that was received. And I've said I want to use the institutional concerns and complaints policy. So if you have a policy, that can be put into this box here, and it will remain there forever until you change it. So you only have to do this on the first occasion you use this generator. And in future uses, as you see, I haven't pasted anything in there. Future uses, that policy or procedure will sit there and be utilized as background to the result. And you can decide if you want to suggest an initial response. Sometimes a quick response, obviously, is not a relevant way to deal with it. But we'll ask for a quick response here, just in case we need to do something urgently to calm down the situation or to deal with a difficult situation. So here we go. Based on the policy, here's a list of the items that we should do. It says here, important, in some circumstances, it may be best for the matter to be considered at management level before a direct response is made. But if you do want a direct response, here is a suggested form for it to go. Since it was received, you'll remember, as an email, it's suggesting an email response. So that's a system to look at external complaints or concerns. A concern is perhaps a lesser thing than a complaint, but it still sometimes needs careful dealing. As well as external concerns or complaints, sadly, we may sometimes get internal grievances. So this is a very similar generator. In this case, perhaps it was a personal approach. In this case, perhaps the line manager was approached with a grievance. Who's it from? Well, it could be anonymous. Let's say it's from a member of staff in this case. And I've got a very simple one here. This says, I've been criticized by my manager because of my limp slowing me down when serving meals. I can't do anything about my injury, which will take several months to fully heal. So you can see why they have a grievance. And again, we can use our institutional grievance policy or whatever the similar document is. And we can say, yes, we want an initial response. And again, we can generate a response, hoping that we will ease the situation for that particular person. So what it's done is, again, suggested actions, providing a copy of the grievance procedure, arranging an informal meeting, seek advice from human resources, engage with the manager accused of. So it's a list of ideas. It's also mentioning the Equality Act 2010. Again, an initial response if it's needed, but a warning that it might be best to speak about it at management level first. And finally, and we're well coming up to time, I apologize, just one more to look at, which is, again, it is very similar, but in this case, it's the, let me find it on my screen, addressing a whistleblower situation. Now, this may be more urgent, as you realize. I'll put this from an email. This is from an identifiable member of staff who volunteers their name. And this is rather a long complaint that I've got here. This is a genuine one that has been anonymized. And basically, it says that this person was watching, this is somebody working in a school canteen, sorry, a college canteen, I think in this case, who noticed that a colleague was dealing with a student with learning difficulties and being very angry and unpleasant with him. So it's quite an unpleasant situation. Again, we could decide not to use the whistleblowing policy, but it seems logical to do so. So the default is yes, we will use the whistleblowing policy, which is in this box here. And we will perhaps suggest an immediate response. and again, we will generate. And this will be similar to the generation that we've seen already for the complaints and for the grievances, but obviously the nature of the situation is somewhat different. But here are the suggested actions. So, ladies and gentlemen out there in TeacherMatic land, that's my presentation for today. I'm sure there'll be some questions which Esam will pass on to me or we handle at the end of the webinar, that I'm going to now hand back to Esam. Thank you.
Big thanks to you, Richard, for demoing these tools and especially for working so closely with our customers. You know, you've been absolutely fantastic at turning their feedback into these features. So I've released the cameras and the mics, and this is your chance to share your views, ask questions, or join the conversation.